What have been your observations since the Gillnet ban in relation to replenishment of marine products? Is that something you have studied, or is it something you just start hearing from your own fisher folk about how things have proceeded since that ban?
Yeah, it's basically something that it's not something that we monitored.
Okay.
It's just feedback that we got from those who were a part of the ban that are now saying that they are seeing more products, more fishes returning in areas where they weren't. But in terms of quantum, in terms of stock and so forth, we wouldn't have that information. Hence the reason why we're asking the Fisheries Department to provide us with a stock assessment so that we can really get a clear understanding as what the impact of the banning meant.
Did you have licensed gillnet fishers within the BFF? And if you did, maybe you can provide a number, but what has been the feedback in terms of how the transition actually worked?
Yes, we do. We have that benefit and some that didn't benefit from the banning. Those who have benefit did made investment with the funds that they receive, so they are satisfied. But the ones who did not benefit and did not receive anything, they are the ones that are a little bit upset still.
But is it that they didn't benefit precisely because they were not licensed?
Yeah, well, majority of them were not licensed. And then, as you know, fisheries determine what year they were going to use. We did not determine that, and I think that year was 2018. And there were a lot of fishers who had and who were using the nets that were not licensed for that specific year.
Nonetheless, they still have had to give up that gear. So what have they done without assistance to be able to move away and still earn a living?
That has been the major challenge for these guys, because you know that the gear has been banned out at sea. So even though you did not receive a compensation for giving up your net, you still had to give it up, and then you still had to figure out a way how you would transition and invest into something else and continue on your livelihood, which is a challenge for many of our fisher folks.
So as it relates to enforcement by the authorities, are you able to share any observations in relation to that? Do you know if fishers are still actually using the gear?
My understanding that there are some fishers that are still using the gear. They are limited in terms of enforcement, or I should say I don't want to say that there's no enforcement at all, because I know that once the Fisheries Department would come across the net, they would confiscate it, or the NGO communities, the rangers, they would confiscate the nets. And we have seen whereby since the ban, there were guys that were still using nets, and those have been confiscated. So the enforcement, as we know, is never always 100%, but we know that there's a little bit of enforcement when it comes to the gillnet ban.
And then, do you foresee we will reach a point when we simply don't have any gillnet use in Belize?
Well, I don't think that they'll ever ban it inland.
Well, it was supposed to have been banned.
I don't know if they'll ever ban it inland. I know that there's still some discussion around that. So I won't say that there'll be 100% ban across, because I'm not certain, because it's still there's still some mechanism to have it inland.